All right, AP World History students, we've reached the end of time period 2. We're going to focus on key concept 2.3 now, which is all about trade in the classical era. That's 600 BC to 600 CE. And trade didn't begin in this time period, and it's going to continue even after this time period. But some of the major developments that happen in the classical era are going to change the way that we trade and who people are connected to. And those connections will remain way after the classical civilizations have fallen. So let's take a look at trade in the classical era. We've got key concept 2.3. There's pretty much 3 trade routes that you should know about. And some of the textbooks call them this specific way, and some of them call them a little bit different. But in general, you've got the Silk Roads. The Silk Roads are not just silk and not really roads, but they're connecting Eurasia on more of land-based routes. Then you've got the sea routes, the sea roads. This is your Mediterranean, right? I'm going to show you a map of all of this in a second. But in the Mediterranean, you have all the connections across the Mediterranean Sea. And then you also have the sea roads in the Indian Ocean that are connecting the entire Indian Ocean basin, right, across India, from Africa to Southeast Asia. And then finally, you have sand roads. This is like the desert trade that's happening across the Saharan desert. And this begins in the classical era as well. So if you can remember silk, sea, and sand, you're in a good spot. So thanks to my buddy Ben Freeman at Freemanpedia, here is an amazing map that he made that is super helpful in knowing the actual routes. And so just like I kind of mentioned, you have the Silk Roads, which are in red there. It's also kind of the purple ones as well, but you can see they do cross rivers, they do cross water, but they're mostly land routes. Then you've got the Indian Ocean sea routes. That's all the blue that's happening in between Southeast Asia, India, Africa, the Middle East. You've got the Trans-Saharan trade routes up in North Africa. And then, of course, the green is the Mediterranean. Everywhere you see a star on this map is a major city because trade requires a lot of organization. And so all these cities pop up sometimes as port cities, sometimes they're capitals, but either way, they're very much connected to the commerce of different civilizations. And a lot of people will live there because of trade. So one of the most important parts of this time period are the new technologies that really come about because of trade, right? So as soon as you have more trade happening, there's sort of the race to do better, right? How do we trade more? How do we trade faster? The faster I can trade things, the more money I'll make. And so some of those new technologies include yokes. This is where you're literally tying animals together so that now you have more power just just because of that one piece of technology. You've also got saddles and stirrups. Stirrups are like what you put your feet in on the side of a horse. All of these things help to just move quicker, hold more stuff. We're also going to get a lot better on water too. That's the dhows and the junks. Those are ships. The lateen sails that help navigators go quicker through, using the wind. And so all that new technology will really make a difference for trade and how much is trade and how fast people go. Another important piece here is what is actually traded. You don't have to remember every single piece of items, every crop, but the more you can remember, the more evidence points you can get. In general, there are really 4 major groups of things being traded. You've got crops. So some examples would be rice and cotton. You have technology. Some examples would be like the qanat, the irrigation system that goes from Persia to Asia. Lots of other technologies traveled as well, like the actual technologies being developed for trade or other technologies and tools. They get traded too because people want that, right? If you're doing something better than I am, I want to trade you for it. I want to learn how to do it. Then anytime you have people connecting with each other, disease is going to spread. So one of the major diseases that spread in this time period would be smallpox. The spread of disease has a massive impact on this classical civilizations. As we talked about in Key Concept 2.2, civilizations fell in part because of disease. And it's kind of a cycle, right? So because the civilizations had a lot of power and resources, they could trade with more people. As soon as they got more connected, they got more powerful, but they also found diseases. which then impacted and weakened their own civilization and sometimes led to the fall. And so disease is an immensely important aspect of trade that will always happen anytime there's trade. People share disease. People share, biological processes. Then the last thing that's important that's being traded is religion. So anytime people come into contact with each other, they are trading their ideas. Just like they're trading their technology, they're also trading their religions. And so what you do see is a lot of merchants are trading, but they're sharing their ideas in terms of belief systems. And so Christianity will spread to Europe in the Mediterranean basin. Buddhism is going to spread from India all across China, all across Southeast Asia. And that's because of a lot because of trade. And then Hinduism will spread into Southeast Asia from India. And so the trade of these societies is immensely important into understanding how all of Afro-Eurasia became more connected after the classical era. One of the things that you can know as just like a comparison point is that typically on land routes, people end up trading things that are lighter because they're on land. They can't carry as much of it. And those lighter things, they want to make them as expensive as possible. So they tend to be luxury items like gems, things that I can carry a lot of, but are going to cost a lot of money. I can make more money in my trip. Whereas on sea routes, it's kind of the opposite. You have a boat. You can put as much stuff on your boat as you can. So I can trade things like timber or exotic animals that are a lot easier to transport on water. So there's one example where you see bulk items on water and you see luxury items on land. So just to wrap up key concept 2.3 and really all of the classical era, there's a couple of key takeaways and themes that come about in this time period. Generally, empires rise and they grow because of military conquest, economic power, and cultural influence. And so as these things rise and grow, they spread their dominance and their superiority and their ideas across wherever they are. When an empire grows, women tend to lose political and economic status, but they do have power in the household, and especially with children's education. So there's a lot of women that are immensely important in the classical era, although they don't necessarily get, the power of the whole civilization in their hands. They are directing a lot of what's happening in family units. The major world religions in this time period are so important because they impact every part of our society, and they're also used to actually legitimize power. So any political person in power might use Christianity to be in power, right? God chose me to be in power. Therefore, if you believe in what I believe in, then you agree that I should be in power. That's kind of how it would play out. As trade flourishes, as trade gets bigger, the belief systems spread, the empires grow, everyone's doing great until they get too big. So by 600, pretty much all the classical empires have fallen because they're overextended, because disease is coming in through trade, because invaders are coming in through the same roads that are being used for trade. The different leaders are corrupt and things get kind of crazy. So by 600, most of these empires have fallen, but not before making massive impacts on culture and social society that will lead into other civilizations. So we're done with time period 2. That is key concept 2.3. When you're ready, check out key concept 3.1. I've got everything you need to know about the years 600 to 1450. See you then. Thanks for watching this Fiveable review. Be sure to hit subscribe for more AP content and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkFiveable.